Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Schmozcast. I am Chandler here in the 103.5 The Sun Community Radio Station. Chandler here with Andre, Anthony, and Aiden. Fellas, how are we doing today?
Yeah!
Well, I'm doing all right. I'm not too bad. It's been a crazy, interesting week, so yeah, I'm still gonna say I'm doing wonderful.
All right, it has been a crazy week, but to start things off today, we here at the Schmozcast would like to send our condolences to the family of Leon White, better known as Big Van Vader in wrestling. Passed away today at the age of 63 years old. It's a few wrestling highlights or career highlights for him. He's been a champion all over the world. He's been in TV and film all over the place. He was definitely a wrestling legend, and yeah, we'd just like to send our condolences out to his family.
Absolutely. One of the greatest, most mobile big men of all time, at least up until, I know now we're in a different era for mobile big men in not just wrestling, but really all sports. But him and Bam Bam Bigelow really, to me, were the guys that were ahead of their time in terms of being big guys who could do flips, who could do moonsaults or whatever, would go top rope. It didn't always look great, but it was something that you only saw really from those two. So a lot of credit for Vader being that size and a heck of an athlete. Obviously, an NFL player, University of Colorado. He was the man. And to me, even before I really got into wrestling in fifth grade or so, which would have been 98, 99. Even before that, I feel like you knew who Vader was. Like, he was someone to be feared. He was up there with someone that you just heard their name a lot with: Yokozuna, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man. There was like 10 guys' names you could probably know, Jake the Snake Roberts, without really ever having been too immersed in wrestling. But I think that Vader was one of those guys that maybe not the highest on the list, but I think he was still in that realm where you knew who Vader was, right? You at least heard of Vader.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have any Vader memories? I have a not so great one, but if Andre, you want to go first?
A couple matches that come to mind. SummerSlam, I believe it was 96 against Shawn Michaels, which was a really good match. There was one botch that kind of caused some issues backstage, but I mean, that's something that doesn't take away from how good the match was itself. And then another one I don't know if you can see it completely on the network because I think it's edited somewhat, but he had a match in the early 90s when he was in WCW with Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, where Mick Foley got his nose broken. I think it was done on purpose, where they agreed that he was going to throw forearms to his face until his nose broke, which it did, and it was a bloody mess. And that's like Mick Foley and Vader in the 90s, but that's two things that really stick out to me. But then I think the ultimate thing that sticks out is not necessarily one match or one moment, but that moonsault. I mean, you mentioned it before, but that moonsault was, for someone his size, to throw his body like that. And then the Vader bomb itself, the Vader bomb was one of my favorite moves. And he was still, when he did it in 2012 to Heath Slater, it still looked good. So I think those are the things that I remember most. But I think the biggest thing is that moonsault, that 300 whatever plus pound body flying through the air. That's incredible. And he was an innovator, ahead of his time for sure.
I think he was listed at 450 at his height, which is just crazy. And he and Bam Bam Bigelow, actually, I'm just seeing this now, were tag team champions in New Japan at one point. So that's pretty cool. We were talking a little bit before the show, and I was trying to look up some of his music that he used before WWE, and I was like, I bet he had a pretty cool theme song. Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen is what he used. Not a big fan. Eyes of the World by Rainbow, Afro Rock, I'm not sure about that one. But then I think later in his career he would use the Darth Vader, the Imperial March, or the Imperial Death March it's been called. So that's pretty cool to me that he used the other Vader theme song. So I give him credit for that one.
It's awesome. I had no idea about that.
And then for a Vader memory, I guess because I had the Hell in a Cell, or it was King of the Ring 1998, the Hell in a Cell between Mankind and Undertaker. I think Vader came back that night. It didn't end up being a very good return to WWF at the time, whether it was an injury or whatever. But I know that he like had come back to that pay-per-view, and that was always just a memory I had, just an early memory of my wrestling fandom of being more than just a fan, but a fanatic, I guess. So there you go, Vader, R.I.P.
Aiden, do you have anything you want to?
Being a newer fan compared to you guys, since I started watching wrestling in 2009 and the likes, the first time I actually really got introduced to the legends in the business was during the lead up to, I believe it was Raw 1000, when Heath Slater would come out each week and a legend would come and just knock him down. And so my first time was that was my first time seeing Vader, and I was thinking, a man that size should not be able to do that, but he is, and it's awesome.
So that was, how old were you at that time?
In 2009, I was I think I just turned 10.
Okay, cool. So
I was so young.
See, and Vader is somewhat before our time even, so I imagine for Aiden, who we all have at least 10 years on, Vader wouldn't be necessarily as prominent to Aiden as he would have been to us. And even though we really got in, or at least I should speak for myself, not everybody here, because you guys are wrestling fans probably before I was. But for me, like Vader, you knew about him, but I didn't get to see like the height of his career. I would say by 98, 99, he was kind of on his way down, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would definitely say that his best years were probably, as far as being on TV, that we would have had access to, which would have been WCW back in the day. That was probably the height of what we would have been able to see.
The Cactus Jack rivalry, right,
yes,
is the one and that probably you're mentioning too. But it seems like those two had, and if I'm not mistaken, in Germany, he's the guy who Foley was wrestling as Cactus Jack when he lost his ear in Germany. I'm pretty sure that
I think that's a thing.
Cactus Jack.
A memory that I completely forgot about and I'm remembering now was when he took that he was on the back, Cactus Jack being he was on the back of Vader. I don't remember which WCW pay-per-view it was, but he took that back bump onto the ramp full on, he being Mick Foley, full on, no gimmick, no nothing. He just landed. That's when he had the Lords of London contract that he talks about in his autobiographical documentary, which was on the WWE Network, he being Mick Foley. But he does have that great story about Vader. And I'm actually, now that we're talking about Vader, I'm going to check tonight to see if there's a Vader documentary on the network. I'm assuming they're going to have a collection soon, which will be interesting to see because, as you said, he was before our time. I think all of us, other maybe than Aiden, got him interested in the mid-'90s. Me was kind of 95-ish, but I wasn't full on until the later 90s when I got fully immersed in it. So it was always, he was like a Flair or someone like that, where it's like the better days were behind him. But because of how great he was, I did know about him, and that mask was always something that you cannot forget.
Yeah. It looks like it was in WCW. It was Cactus Jack and Vader. It was March 16th of 1994, a WCW tour of Munich, Germany. Cactus Jack, or Mick Foley, had the great line to his wife, the good news or the bad news, and she says, good news first, and he says, well, I'm coming home early, honey. And what's the bad news? My ear isn't coming with me. Oh, gotta love that. But there you go. And as Andre said, I'm looking forward to seeing at least a little video documentary compilation, and then hopefully a collection too, because I would really like to see some of the Vader stuff from that time, because he was such a big deal then, and he's someone who his career was spread out between a lot of different places. I know we won't get to see much of that Japan stuff, but maybe if you have New Japan World, a lot of that Vader stuff from New Japan is over there. But a Vader little documentary or a collection would be really great. I imagine it'll only be a few days, hopefully, before we get something like that. But let's talk about what's going on, what happened this last weekend, where we're at now, and I think we want to start with maybe some NXT.
Yeah, let's get things started off with NXT. Just to run down the NXT TakeOver Chicago II results of each of the matches. Undisputed Era successfully defended their NXT Tag Team Championships against the team of Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch. Ricochet beat Velveteen Dream with a 630 in the corner, which was beautiful on Dream's back. Shayna Baszler successfully defended the NXT Women's Championship by applying the Karafuda clutch on Nikki Cross and making her just kind of go to sleep after one of the creepiest smiles I've ever seen in my life. Aleister Black successfully defended his NXT championship against Lars Sullivan in just a absolute brawl where you got the best of both guys. Lars with his power game and Aleister just his striking prowess. Both were on display. Great match. And in the most personal, most, in my opinion, important storyline going in all of WWE right now, Tommaso Ciampa defeated Johnny Gargano in the Chicago Street Fight.
This tag match to start the night off was really good, and I will say, not to toot my own horn, but toot because this match went down exactly the way I said it would. Last
you
Wednesday,
called it for sure.
That Undisputed Era has to retain. Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch will put on a really good match, and they'll be the last ones in the ring, and they'll get a big babyface pop from the fans who were there in attendance, and it was one of the best matches of the weekend. And I think when you really take the last 2 weekends and how crazy awesome they've been for wrestling, that this match would be in the conversation if we put a little top 5 together. Not much might get past Omega Okada. I don't know. Maybe we have that conversation coming up later, or we can kind of talk about that as we go through. But really good tag match, right?
Yeah, as I said last week, you called that it was that the exact finish to the match, and I said that it had the potential of stealing the show. And all of these matches were fantastic; they were all really good.
You could make the case that this stole the show,
but this, you can make the argument that this one stole the show. It was a great match, just fast paced, exactly what you would expect out of all 4 of these men, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
If there was no Gargano Ciampa match, this definitely would have stolen the show. But even then, you could still make the argument. I don't think any of us thought that Lorcan and Burch were going to win. I'd have to go back and re-listen to see if anyone said it. I know I didn't think so, and I know you. But at the same time, it had me hooked.
I had me questioning it,
and I was like, okay, maybe they might find a way to pull this out. They being Lorcan and Burch, but that's the sign of a great match, and the whole. I mean, I feel like a broken record every time I say this, but the story that they told in the ring, the story that the entire card, top to bottom, the card itself, the pacing was perfect. The way the matches were organized was perfect. The way each story was told in each match was perfect. But to just stick with the first one, probably the second best match on the card. Nothing against the rest of the card. It was all good, but they had an incredible match. And I'm partial because I love tag team wrestling. I've said before, when it's done right, tag team wrestling is the best wrestling in the world. And Undisputed Era is really special. They have a lot of potential to do some big things, both in NXT and then on the main roster. And even though he wasn't in the match, how over is Adam Cole? Baby! I love that. It's one of my favorite things in wrestling when he says that at the beginning of a match.
Yeah, I remember last week we were all talking about, actually the other 4 matches that we all kind of went in depth on, and then we're like, oh yeah, there's that tag team match that could be underrated, and I'm so happy to say that was one of the best matches of the night. And not only is that how you do a great opening to a show, that's also how you do a great tag team in general. Tag team match, I should say, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also the fact that Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch came into this. Most people think, well, they're not going to win, but they did actually, put people thinking like, well, maybe, because there is definitely a lot of potential for them as a tag team together.
It was like you said, that was the perfect way, the absolute perfect way to get the show started. The next match, then we had Ricochet defeat Velveteen Dream, as I said, with a 630 to Dream's back, and this match, just to start things off, Velveteen Dream, he might be the best in the WWE right now when it comes to just the psychology and mind games that he plays.
Yes.
He comes out half Hulkamania, half Prince Puma, literally wearing Ricochet's actual tights. Those weren't made. Those weren't made for him. Those were Ricochet's tights that he was wearing, and because there was the only one pair of them made and that wasn't, as you can see, that wasn't what he's wearing. What he wore at NXT TakeOver wasn't exactly what Prince Puma wore on TV. It was a little bit different. It had a little bit of a trim on the sides of the waist, and I think, yeah, that's it. He only wore
and
those.
we'll post this to our Instagram later
he,
too.
He only wore those in that one PWG match.
Yeah, there's a side by side of Ricochet wearing the Prince Puma tights, same person here. Follow along, and that's the tights, and it's in like almost a small, not quite a picture in picture, in next to the Dreams version. But those are the actual tights. Mm-hmm. That is pretty cool, and because he's. Dream's got what, 4 inches maybe on Puma?
I'd say.
Or I'm sorry, Ricochet. Jesus. Okay, so very interesting. I wonder with maybe the boots. I don't know. That's interesting that they fit like that. But when he came out, I was trying to think. I'm like, that has to be Prince Puma, right? So when you posted on Twitter, Chandler, I was like, okay, good. I can confirm that, because I was looking to see if if that was a thing. But great stuff, man. You're right. Psychology, especially when it comes to ring gear. This is the Dream is on a whole nother level, but this was really fun to see. These guys were great. I think this was a little bit sloppy at times, but this was still a very good, very entertaining match. I think they could outdo this though, no problem. But this should still be heralded as a fine and entertaining match, and a very worthy of NXT Chicago TakeOver 2.
I think it was a great match, and it was a little sloppy, but not in a bad way, because I think it actually helped the story along, at least from the way I saw it. It was the contrast in styles, the pace, the difference in pace between Ricochet and Velveteen Dream, the fact that Velveteen Dream was not the most athletic man in the match for once, and the fact that he was the one trying to slow it down, made it a really interesting match. And I loved how Ricochet, I almost called him Puma, thanks Frony. Ricochet kept trying to pick up the pace, and Velveteen Dream would cut him down, and then he was finally able to get his. It was just great storytelling the entire match. Both of them are incredible wrestlers. They understand how to tell a story in the ring, and this was. I didn't mind the sloppiness. I thought it actually fit with the match. And it wasn't as bad as the botch that we'll probably talk about later that happened in the championship match. That to me is not, I don't know whose fault it is, but we'll talk about that later. But I thought that the sloppiness was not that big a deal in the Dream and Ricochet match.
Aiden, where do you come in on Ricochet and Dream? I imagine you were entertained as all of us were.
Yeah, so I said it last week that I thought this was going to be my match of the night, and I will gladly say that this was for me. Not to say anything bad about the Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano match, because that was amazing in of itself, but when it comes to pure wrestling and not just brawling and hitting each other with stop signs, this is how you do real wrestling. I suppose wrestling in the fact that they're just throwing each other off the top rope, but yeah. So, and I will also say now that this match has led this for Velveteen Dream to be my favorite wrestler on the roster right now.
That's awesome. He's definitely one of my favorites too. Velveteen Dream is incredible.
Absolutely. I don't want them to rush him, but I also would love to see him on Raw next week. It's the weirdest thing. Like, I do want him to be protected, and he's also still so young. But there's a reason that he has this hype machine behind him, and I think so far he's proven that he is nothing but worth it.
I think he should stay. He's so young. They need to keep him in NXT for a while. I don't want WWE to ruin him. I want him to stay in the hands of Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I don't want him to go to Mick Mahan's hands to be turned into the next Apollo Creed or who was it? Adam Rose.
Apollo Creed.
Apollo Crews. Oh my gosh. I just did a Dan and Bryan, didn't I?
That's
wow.
All right. Everybody has.
Yeah, I think it would be best to keep Velveteen Dream on NXT. I'd say for an actual while on, because there are still a lot of people that he can get great matches out of, like on one-on-one matches especially.
And he's someone I could see that they put the title on him too. I'd love to see that. I think he could do a lot with it. But that's down the road. I'm saying I need to stick another year or two.
At least, I would definitely say at least a year. the next match, then we have Shayna Baszler defeated Nikki Cross with the Karafuda clutch. You know, Andre, you said you said on the way here that this might have been one of the best or the best takeover, and I was kind of on the fence. But looking at this card and thinking about these matches, remembering these matches, and as you said, the story that each one of these matches told, they each told such a great in-ring story, and this one is no different. Just a crazy match.
I loved the story of Nikki Cross being someone that Shayna Baszler has never been in the ring with. Shayna Baszler is always, and they did a really good job in the pre-match package and in the match and in the commentary of telling the story of Shayna Baszler has always been the bully, always been the biggest, the strongest, not no one on her level because she intimidates everybody. But then you got someone like Nikki Cross who's not going to be intimidated by her, who's actually kind of a glutton for punishment in a sense, and that throws Baszler off her game, and she almost lost the title because of it. And at the same time, Nikki Cross did not look weak at all, played into her character well. The way that she passed out from the pain with that wicked smile on her face and then passing out, not giving up, that keeps her looking strong, and that keeps the title on Baszler. This was another great match, and I'm a big fan of Nikki Cross already, and I've been a fan of Baszler for about a month now, but I'm even more of a fan of her now, and this match was incredible and fun, and I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I thought it was going to be a pee break type of match, and it wasn't. I was on the edge of my seat.
Hey, Chandler, you know what Nikki Cross and this chair have in common?
What's that?
They both have a screw loose. Aiden, what'd you think about this one?
You know, I hate to say this, but this match puts the women on the main roster to shame. They are not they are not living up to the standard that they are trying to give everyone, because this, like Andre says, this is how you do storytelling. This is how you get into character, you stay in character, and you just this is real entertainment. Like I said, this wasn't the match I was looking forward to the most, but this was like the match that was like, okay, there's something amazing happening here, and everyone needs to watch it.
All right. Frony, any other thoughts on this match? I will say just quickly, I know I've been the biggest downer on Shayna here, and I gladly so was that, but I think I just hadn't seen her enough. Honestly, I get what they're doing with her character. I kind of felt like at first her character, I don't know if I felt like it was forced or if it just I didn't believe it. Maybe because I hadn't seen her in the ring as much, but I get what they're doing with her character, and she can bring it in the ring. And I was wrong. I was wrong.
And so what was really cool about this match is she did something different outside the box. She wasn't her normal dominant self. She was actually in peril, and she had to find a way to overcome someone who she couldn't overcome with her normal intimidation and her bullying. She had to find another way to pull out a victory, which in the end helps her character even more.
Everyone's got to adapt when a crazy girl's running at you.
This was a very good match, especially like Aiden said, it does put the women on the main roster to shame, and it says a lot about the difference between NXT and WWE. I know this is always going to be the conversation when we do NXT takeovers, but when you have all the women who used to be on NXT, who used to be awesome, now on the main roster, not putting on great matches on Raws, SmackDowns, pay-per-views, whatever, house shows, yet the NXT continues to put out the best matches over and over, then obviously something is not wrong with the talent. Okay, it's the people getting them prepared. It is, I don't know if it's a combination of travel mixed with writers, mixed with Vince McMahon having the last say, or whatever it might be. Just everything being overproduced, overwritten, and I don't know, and never really coming through and meeting the standards that NXT has set for the company as a minor league brand. It's laughable, man. It's crazy to say, and I'm not trying to throw too much shade at Money in the Bank, because I actually think it was a really good pay-per-view, minus a couple spots, but we'll get to those real soon. But once again, also love Shayna Baszler's music. When it came on, I was like, oh my God, I love this song. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I love this song, is because this is her music, and it's now on one of the playlists that I just play all the time because it's such a damn good song. But these two women did an awesome job, and I think that I think the match we're about to talk about next, which is the NXT Championship match, was the worst match of the night. I think that it still was solid, but Baszler and Cross were one of the shining moments of the night. I know it's only 5 matches, but they were maybe the best, but definitely not the worst.
And to say that the NXT Championship match, which I would agree with that, to say that the NXT Championship match was the worst match of the night just lets you know how amazing this pay-per-view was. Yeah. Because it wasn't, by no stretch was it a bad match. There were a few spots that were kind of this match and the Ricochet and Velveteen Dream match. They were a bit sloppy. There were a few spots here and there in both matches that, if you really want to be nitpicky, you could say they might blemish the match, but I don't think so at all. People might say that. I don't think that anyone here in this room, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I don't think that we would say that here. But one spot in particular was when Aleister Black went for the Black Mass kick with Lars Sullivan's back to him, and it just barely grazed him, and they recovered. It completely missed. It did, and they recovered from it with the pinfall, and then Lars kicks out, and they just they get back into the swing of things. But that point in the match is kind of one of the reasons why I feel like it was the low part of the card of the evening. But that's not anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't ruin the match. It doesn't ruin the show. It doesn't ruin anything by that happening.
Quick question on that botch there. Do you think if, and I'm not putting it on either of them specifically, but Lars is the one that knows he didn't get hit. Do you think 3 to 5 years down the line, if that happens, Lars does not? He sells it like he sells it like it was a miss, and he incorporates it into the match. Do you think it just because he was? Because I don't wrestle, so I don't know. But what do you guys think? Like, do you think he just, I'm supposed to get kicked here, so I'm gonna go down and where he's gonna pin me, or?
I don't know if he heard Aleister give like or something, so that way he thought he had to go down.
Slap.
Yeah, and so, but I don't know, man. I was surprised that the Chicago crowd was as kind to them as they were, and they weren't all that kind and right after it happened, but they did recover and still cheer the match at the end. But they were a lot kinder than they would have had that been Roman Reigns out there and Jinder Mahal. That's for sure.
Very. A lot kinder.
That spot wouldn't have flown. I'll tell you that much.
Nothing did in that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
The thing that I thought about this match, the botch specifically, is what I feel makes a great performer is not whether they botch or not. It's how they recover if they mess up. And I think I would say both of them recovered from this botch very well, even though it was clearly obvious. He misses the kick, but I think they just kind of said, that happened, let's move on and make it work.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, I was talking about the Vader and Shawn Michaels match in '96 that there was a botch in it.
Exactly. This is live performances. Not everything's going to be perfect, but when stuff messes up and they recover well, that's what we got to give the performers credit for.
As you go along through a match too, and this did happen right near the end of the match, might have even been what was supposed to be the end of the match. Obviously your stamina is way down, and it looked a lot worse because it was the end of the match than had it happened in the first 5 minutes. I don't think we'd even be mentioning it maybe even right now. I don't know, but it was more just like the timing of it. But it's more likely to happen near the end of a match as everyone gets tired. But all together, not that big of a deal. I love Aleister Black. I enjoy Lars Sullivan. I think that they'll be fine from here.
And Aleister retains, which I was really, really hoping for. And, I mean, it was kind of obvious as well. But I'm really excited to see who his next challenger is going to be. Moving on then, the final match of the evening. Tommaso Ciampa defeated Johnny Gargano in a match that just had too many feelings for me. Oh, man. I can't describe everything that they have done, in my opinion, everything that they have done with these two in this entire rivalry, starting with their first round match in the Cruiserweight Classic. From that moment on, everything that they have done with these two has been absolutely perfect, and this match was no different for me.
Last week we talked a lot about Okada and Omega, but this Gargano and Ciampa rivalry is right up there with how good and how intense it is. And the story, as I've said a million times on this show, the story that they told and the continuation of the story that they're telling is just, it's riveting. And you're emotionally invested in something that you know, or I should say I know is scripted, and I know it's quote unquote fake, but I'm still invested, and I'm still on the edge of my seat, and I'm still a little heartbroken when Ciampa hits that DDT on the wood and gets the pin and weasels his way out of it. And I'm sitting here getting mad that those guys in suits came out and stopped Gargano, and there was no ref around to count the pin. And I know it's all scripted, but I'm still getting mad at the characters involved in the story. That's how good this rivalry is.
It's still real to me.
But it is. It's like a movie. It's, you get into a movie in the same way you know it's not real, but it's when they do it right, which this whole card did, but that main event did, which was my match of the night. All the matches were great, but that match just had me hooked the same way that Okada Omega 4 had me hooked.
I'll mention again how this puts the main roster to shame, because this is how you do practically perfect storytelling. And I've not seen perfect storytelling on a main roster in years. And the fact that I feel like I can say for all of us, we are all entirely invested in this match, in this rivalry, in this, it's the pure raw emotion that these two just honestly hate each other so much, where Ciampa takes off Gargano's wedding ring, spits on it,
man.
throws it away, but then Gargano picks him up, throws him right through the tables just like last year.
I did love too how long Gargano just sat and looked at his finger before he quote snapped, and we could go on. I don't want to babble on about this match, but I could, because it was so good. I might even rewatch it again in the next coming days.
Yeah, it's hard not to put this as match of the night, because there's so much behind it, in addition to being just a well-told story within an even larger arc of story, and also on just being the longest match, deservedly so, on an amazing card. It was great. I mean, it outshined what was, the NXT Championship should usually be the top of the card, but that hasn't happened in a few different instances. But man, these two, at the end of the decade, this will go down. This will be in the top 5 rivalries for the decade, and at least one of these matches will get in also for top 5 matches of the decade.
And I will say this too: we talk about we talk about Omega and Styles often on the show when we talk about the best in the world, but I'm ready to put Johnny Gargano in that equation. That was another star-making performance by him.
At least we forget we could also put Ciampa one of the best heels in history.
For sure. He's incredible too.
He is the guy you absolutely love to hate.
And that's hard to do in this era too, in this day and age.
Like, the last great heel was like Jericho, and he's still a great heel now, but when it comes to like main wrestlers right now going full time, Ciampa is one of the best heels in the entire business, I'd say, right now.
It's hard not to give him that spot, I guess, is to say that he is not the best heel in the business. Is that the case, Chandler?
I think that's absolutely fair to say.
Who do you put number 2?
Miz.
I agree, Miz.
All right, that's fair. I feel like he's now so loved though too that, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say he's a babyface, but I think even though,
if we're doing that route, then I'm gonna say Roman,
Oh,
because
God.
he's technically a babyface, but he's a heel.
I just give Miz credit for being a heel for so long and
Yes.
keeping it and getting better with time.
absolutely,
By the way, Ciampa's from the state of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, baby.
damn right.
Yes, he is.
All the best are.
Shout outs to Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Just both of them. Match of the night, hands down. Then Sunday night, the next night, we have Money in the Bank, which the gap between these two wasn't as big, I would say, between the two pay-per-views, wasn't as big as it normally is. Money in the Bank actually stood. It was a solid for the main roster. It was a solid pay-per-view, and I was pleasantly surprised by how well they did as an entire show. To start things off, we had the Bludgeon Brothers defeat the Good Brothers of Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson in the kickoff show for the SmackDown Live tag titles. Then to start the show off, Daniel Bryan defeated Big Cass with a heel hook. Next match, we had Bobby Lashley defeat Sami Zayn. Next up, we had Seth Rollins successfully defend his Intercontinental Championship against Elias. And then from there, we had the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match where Alexa Bliss was able to climb the ladder and grab the briefcase, and she defeated Sasha Banks, Ember Moon, Natalya, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Naomi, and Lana. And Alexa is the second ever Ms. Money in the Bank. Carmella defeated Asuka to retain her SmackDown Live Women's Championship, not without the help of one sluggish James Ellsworth, making his return to the WWE. Then the last man standing match, we had AJ Styles defeat Shinsuke Nakamura and retain the WWE Championship. Nia Jax was able to retain the Raw Women's Championship against Ronda Rousey, but only because Alexa came out, got involved in the match, and so the match was thrown out via disqualification, and then Alexa Bliss cashes in her Ms. Money in the Bank contract to become the new Raw Women's Champion. And the Men's Money in the Bank, Braun Strowman climbs the ladder and grabs the briefcase, defeating Finn Balor, The Miz, Rusev, Bobby Roode, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, and Kofi Kingston.
By the way, did you purposely skip the Roman Reigns match? I don't care if you did. That's great.
I didn't. My subconscious did, and thank you, subconscious.
I feel we
Roman Reigns won.
We can just skip that match entirely.
Also Roman Reigns won.
We don't need to talk about it though. Whatever.
Do you guys want to talk about your overall thoughts of the pay-per-view right now, or do you want to do each match first?
Overall, as I said, it stood up as a good pay-per-view. I'd say so far of this year, this was the best one I think the main roster has put on.
I think this is the best main roster pay-per-view of the year. I think this is a huge step in the right direction. We talked a little bit last week about how I think this needs to be an important one for WWE because they've already got their money for the TV contracts. Now we should put some more focus on making big events being big events. It was... other than I think one match, obviously the Lashley Zayn match that was rushed, everything else was given I think proper time for the most part, and it really worked well with it was scheduled for 4 hours. They went maybe 15 minutes extra, something like that, but I thought everything was given for the most part the right amount of time. You got the right angles you wanted in there, the right storytelling. I really like this pay-per-view. I think this is a really good step in the right direction for getting some interest and now kind of getting that ball rolling towards SummerSlam. I know we've got, I believe, Extreme Rules first.
Next up, yep.
But I think, now you're really, especially with what happened on Raw and SmackDown these last two nights, they're really setting things up for the summer showcase. So I'm a big fan of Money in the Bank. The last few years have not been good for Money in the Bank. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year. Was just awful. Mm-hmm. Baron Corbin, his win, and then the women's match went awfully with Ellsworth. Ellsworth then returns this year. I was so happy to see that. God, I was hoping it was him and that he had shaved his arms, and it actually was him. Because I'm like, God, what woman is that? But I'm like, no, wait a second, that could still be him. How did the mask stay on? I don't know.
He doesn't have.
I think that's what was so mystifying for Asuka. She's like, how is he keeping it on? That's
doesn't have a chin for it to
I have never told anybody.
I don't get it. How's it stay?
That's great.
The pop he got was great too. I loved that.
Hell yes.
But I agree. It was an incredibly good pay-per-view. No, it wasn't as good as TakeOver. But I was still pleasantly surprised because I never go into a main roster pay-per-view thinking it's going to come close to NXT. So when it does exceed my expectations, it's really fun to watch. A lot of things happened that I didn't expect. One of them being Daniel Bryan defeating Big Cass, which looking back now, it was obvious why.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I loved it, and I popped. I was by myself at my house with my dog, and I popped and clapped for my favorite wrestler, Daniel Bryan, getting another clean victory. And I didn't see that coming. I didn't see Braun, even though he was the obvious pick. I just thought storytelling reasons everyone was going to destroy him, and that was a surprise to me too. And I was pleasantly surprised because that's a great Money in the Bank.
We'll get into each match individually, but Aiden, would you say that this Money in the Bank, if they can continue this, that did the main roster close the gap a little bit, or is NXT still taking steps above with what they did on Saturday night to the point where it's going to take quite a bit more for WWE to really close the gap? Because NXT never seems to stay the same, whereas WWE might get better with their pay-per-views, but NXT still continues to climb up and up. Or how far away are they?
Yeah, I agree that NXT is still continuing to rise, and I feel that while the gap has kind of shrunk a bit between main roster and NXT, I feel while this was an excellent main roster pay-per-view, I feel they're still going to really need to work if they actually want to close that gap at all.
I also want to say that having, for the most part, a healthy roster really helped out. There's been times over the last 4 or 5 years where just things haven't worked out for WWE, and having the guys you want healthy at the same time. And if you look at some of the people who are left off this pay-per-view, there's still a lot, whether it be, you've got Deleters of Worlds or the Usos. I mean, there's a lot of people like a Big E and who didn't wrestle. I mean, there's still a lot of people who weren't on the card that you just see what kind of amazing roster we're dealing with at this time, and which is why this should be the normal pay-per-view. This should be what we get once a month, not what we're surprised. Hey, would you look at that, And I hate to be I'm not trying to crap on it because it was awesome, but this should be the normal for a big event. You should have this feeling.
Do you mean, should this be the normal for just the Big Five, or are you saying this should be every pay-per-view?
Well, I think there should be 8 to 10 pay-per-views and not 12 to 16, but I think that this level of entertainment is what I should get out of nearly every pay-per-view.
I agree with that.
I think you could add more changes story-wise and title changes to a bigger five, but I am not complaining at all with Money in the Bank. I'm just saying that this should be what you should walk away having this feeling after big events, and this doesn't happen.
That's the whole point of it.
That's the whole point.
You want it to feel different
Yes.
than a Raw or a SmackDown, and
if,
not to say that what they're doing on either of those shows is bad, or you don't feel that way from time to time with those shows. But it's a pay-per-view. It's an event, and they did a really good job of utilizing all the what talent that they have, not even all of it, with what they had, and just fantastic. Starting the night off, Daniel Bryan and Big Cass. I absolutely, as Andre said, didn't expect the outcome of this match, but this entire week from last Wednesday to now, so many things have happened. Big Cass is no longer with the company, so it's kind of pointing towards maybe that's why Daniel Bryan got the win. Either way, it was shocking. It was a great match for Daniel Bryan, and I'm really interested in not only after this match, but after SmackDown this week with the show that he put on in the number one contender gauntlet match. Now that he didn't win it, I'm really, really interested to see where he goes from here, because I would have assumed that his rivalry with Big Cass would have continued after Money in the Bank. Now that he's not the number one contender, and the entire story with him right now is the whole focus is now that the honeymoon phase is over. They even said that on TV, that the honeymoon phase is over. Yes, it's awesome that he's back, but now he wants to get back to winning championships. How does he get there? Does he go after the U.S. title? Is that something that happens? Does he try to find a way back to the WWE championship?
There's a lot of options. The Miz conversation will always be there. I still think that there's some fun left out there between either him and Shinsuke or him and Samoa Joe, which we may have seen 10 years ago or probably something like that. But I don't know. There's a lot of interesting conversations still to be had about Daniel Bryan. That's another thing. It's just one of the most exciting things to have him healthy and a part of this healthy roster. That could be hopefully this is, like I said, I want Money in the Bank this is hopefully a launch pad and not a high spike on a little chart. you know? So hopefully that's the case. If I wanted to pick this match apart, I would say there was a lot of Big Cass missing wildly over the top of Daniel Bryan. That's obviously not on Daniel Bryan, but man, I was like, how many times can I see this where you're not going to hit him, apparently, you know, like by the end of the match. But I still was very surprised by the Big Cass news this week as well.
Just give us Daniel Bryan versus Miz already. We've been waiting for years. We've been waiting years for this.
Here's the thing: I do like the slow build that they're doing. I do like that Miz defeated Daniel Bryan. I don't know we're jumping to SmackDown, but I don't know if we're gonna get a chance to talk about this later. But the way that he beat him in the gauntlet match so cheaply was just, it sets the stage for when that finally happens. It's gonna be huge, and when Daniel Bryan finally wins, it's a WrestleMania-worthy pop.
They're teasing us, and I just want it now. I'm impatient.
Yeah, but that's a good story is when they tease you and they drag it out just long enough, but not too long.
As many years is too long.
That's Aiden's story, and he's sticking to it. Next match, we had Bobby Lashley defeating Sami Zayn, and this match definitely was rushed. It felt rushed, but
thank God.
Not thank God. I wanted. Yes, I was more than happy that this is the end of this whole, I don't even know, just terrible promo segment having rivalry between Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley.
It was an abortion.
At best. But I wanted Bobby Lashley to be able to show that, you know, he is a dominant force in the ring, because he is, and his run in TNA proved that. And Sami Zayn is somebody that would be, you know, he can work with anyone. So I really strongly believe that these two, if they were able to, could have a good have a good match. Not a rivalry. I don't want to see a rivalry, but these two could definitely put on a good match. But I guess Sami Zayn truly is injured, and he's going to be off of TV for the next few weeks. So that's why the match was as quick as it was, which is unfortunate. But yeah, Bobby Lashley won with a delayed vertical suplex, and that was just, after that I was like, oh really? That's okay. That's the end of the match.
It easily could have gone on longer. If there was a match for them to shorten, it was obviously this one or Jinder and Reigns, but that certainly wasn't going to happen. So I'm okay with it. I did think that Sammy was still going to kick out there. Also a little bit surprising over the last month, or maybe even more so since WrestleMania, we haven't really seen that much Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I think this would have been a moment for Owens to get involved, and then maybe Sammy helps out later in the night with Money in the Bank, but really nothing talked about there. It was surprising not to see Kevin Owens, even though I know they haven't seen them together in a while, but whatever. I was fine with this ultimately coming to an end, ceasing and existing no more, and keep Lashley and Sami Zayn away from each other, hopefully from here on out.
Pass.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do bad storytelling and bad management.
Both things. Seth Rollins successfully retained his Intercontinental Championship against Elias, and what I would say is the best match that I've seen Elias have in his entire time being both in NXT and on the main roster now. He had a great outing, and there were a lot of times, including the very last roll-up at the end of the match, there were a lot of times where it looked like Elias was going to walk out with the Intercontinental Championship. And the story going forward with that is you have on Raw the next night, Seth Rollins coming out ready to burn it down and do his old Monday Night Rollins thing, issues an Intercontinental Championship Open Challenge, and both Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler walk out. You're not entirely sure which one is going to accept the challenge going into the match, but Dolph Ziggler gets in the ring, and the next thing we know, Seth Rollins loses the Intercontinental Championship, and Dolph Ziggler is now a 5-time champ. And I was so surprised to see that. I feel like Dolph Ziggler has been someone, even though this whole pairing with Drew McIntyre is supposed to be a shot in the arm to him, I felt like he's someone that they have just completely given up on as far as actually being important. The IC title is clearly his ceiling after cashing in Money in the Bank. And I really, honestly, I thought that I would see both McIntyre and Ziggler with the tag champions before I would have seen one of the two
Yeah,
winning a singles
but I am
title.
happy about this. Now it even mirrors more so the HBK and,
really
and
does.
Diesel aspect, and going back to guys we didn't see on Money in the Bank because of this great roster, Ziggler and McIntyre have got to be high on that list as well.
Plus,
Another-
that
go
means
ahead.
probably a breakup is coming sometime down the line where Ziggler is going to have to defend his title against McIntyre.
Mania.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking and hoping. No,
It's a long
nothing
time
wrong
for
with-
him to have that belt.
Yeah.
I could see him getting. I don't
could
know about
see him
Universal though.
Here, but
I-
they could do something where he loses it and then McIntyre wins it,
yes,
and they kind of go
Sure.
back and forth, and then they're still friends, but then I don't know. There's a lot they can do, but yeah, I have no problem with it either for that reason, and for the reason that it gives us the possibility of Seth Rollins winning the whichever
Universal.
multi-man match that they're going to have at Extreme Rules to crown a new number one contender for Brock's Universal title. I would love to see Brock and Seth Rollins.
I think Seth Rollins, to me, Aiden, I don't know what you think, and I know we want to get your thoughts about this IC match and situation this week, but I guess a small sidebar would be that a prediction, I think Seth Rollins is the next Universal Champion.
A bold prediction. I feel like I want Seth to stay in the Intercontinental Championship picture for really one reason only. I want him to win the title back, have an open challenge. Dean Ambrose comes out.
There you go. You know that's got to be coming soon. I think Dean Ambrose will be somewhat. He's got to. I would say by SummerSlam we will see Dean Ambrose. Maybe even as soon as this week. But they're not finished with the Shield thing. I would say that we still have yet to maybe get the Shield Part 2, and maybe that's a SummerSlam
Part
match
3,
too.
you mean.
Is it Part 3? Oh, one was.
Technically, yes.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Part 2
Part
was the
2
Kurt Angle version.
I'm not. No, I mean
With the
the
smile.
Shield all in the same match.
The Shield featuring
Yes.
Kurt Angle.
Oh
They
God.
didn't they have a Raw match before their pay-per-view, or did their one match was just the Kurt
I
Angle?
want to say it
one?
was Battleground last year, and then other than that, I don't know if they actually faced each other off in a triple threat match.
triple threat match.
Right. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. I think that last year at Battleground last July was the only time, but
So basically, it was Shield 1.5.
there you go.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. My fault.
No worries. So there you go. Dolph Ziggler's the IC champ. I'm excited to see where they go with this. Another thing, it's been WWE had, I think, 4 good nights in a row, at least in terms of getting excitement going.
How much does the Drew McIntyre pairing make a difference? Because if Drew McIntyre's not in the picture, How excited are we about Dolph
I'd
winning
be
it?
so mad. I
Yep,
would actually be upset
exactly.
because I would think that they're not going to actually do anything with it, and it lowers the IC title a little bit. So, but now with McIntyre, it actually changes everything about it. The dynamic of their friendship or partnership or employee-employer, whatever it might be, that adds all the sorts of fun and mystery. And to see where this goes, it's new, it's different. We don't really see stuff like this.
and that's just an example of how storytelling can be the difference from the same thing. The same end result can be either good or bad based on the storytelling and how you get there.
I see a possible Claymore catching Ziggler in the back of the head from behind, and then possible triple threat match for IC title.
There you go. Is it okay if we jump now to? Well, let's move on to the next match for now.
So yeah, the next match then, Alexa Bliss was able to climb the ladder and retrieve the women's Money in the Bank briefcase. And this match, I feel like they did a really good job having each one of the women in this match shine, including Lana, which I honestly, I didn't really expect much out of her. And I guess if you thinking back on it, she didn't really do too much in the match, but she held her own with all 7 of the other women, and the other 7 women in this match are they have to be the best women in the division, I would say, for representing both shows. They did a really good job choosing the 4 from Raw and the 4 from SmackDown, I think. And to say that Lana was able to hang with all of them, that's saying something. And it was a fantastic match.
Not only did she hang, she took some bumps onto the ladder, which I was surprised that she even took, and she earned more respect for me for that, because that does not look like it tickles.
I think she is getting better, but she still looks very, very green out there and dangerous and scary at times. But I will, as you said, I give her more credit for seeing what she did in that car crash type match. The match itself was obviously very good, so I'm not calling that match specifically a car crash, but just how all those ladder matches can get chaotic. But I give her a lot of credit. Aiden, what do you think?
What makes a great Money in the Bank ladder match is having each of the performers have their shining moments and ultimately having one big moment at the end. And initially, when Alexa Bliss won, I was kind of disappointed because she just got out of the main Raw Women's Championship picture, and then immediately gets back into it. But by the end of the Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax match, as soon as she cashed in, I was like, all right, I can get behind this, because since it's so soon and doing it right away just really makes sense to me.
I feel like that was probably the best part of Alexa Bliss winning, because I totally agree with you. I wasn't really 100% on board with her winning when it happened, but by the end of the actual Women's Championship match, Raw Women's Championship match, it made sense. The way having Alexa Bliss, of all the people, having Alexa Bliss cash it in right away to cause a disqualification in the current championship match, it just the way they did that with Alexa was perfect.
She's like me, very impatient.
Yes, true.
I really would have. So Alexa Bliss was, I think I picked her third. I thought that Sasha was my main pick, and then I thought Sasha and Becky made the most sense. But and I still believe that, but I have no problem with Bliss winning. I think she deserves another accolade with just how amazing she's been. 2 straight years of top-notch stuff, the best stuff we've seen from Alexa Bliss. And then for her to cash in on the night, I agree with you guys. I think that actually made it more fun. And now we have, the focus of the Money in the Bank now is back to the men's, which it has not been in basically 2 years.
And it fit.
And actually, I would say 3 years, because 2 years ago, Ambrose cashed in right away.
Yep.
And it fit Alexa Bliss's character and personality for her to cash in right away. She just lost the title. She's going to find a way to weasel it back right after Nia and Ronda have a hellacious match, which, by the way, props to Ronda, because she sold like HBK AJ Styles out there and took some hellacious bumps. But for her, Alexa Bliss to cash in as quick as she did and the manner that she did fit perfectly with her and with the story that they are telling with her, and I have no problem with it whatsoever. A lot of people are online are unhappy, but I'm a huge Bliss fan, and just another notch in her belt, which is great.
Skipping ahead here, Roman beat Jinder.
Pass.
Yeah, wonderful, great. We move on.
That's
all I have to say. The crowd was all over them, and it was hilarious. It was hilarious to see that.
Let's maybe do this one next week.
Yeah.
And I know
we can get more in depth.
Let's marinate a little bit on it.
That's the real story here right now, was the crowd's reaction to this and just what that means for people that are in the spot that they're in. Roman. Okay, so moving on. Carmella defeated Asuka with James Ellsworth returning, and that was just hilarious and fantastic. That I feel like that's the only way that Carmella was going to be able to retain against Asuka, was to have some outside distraction or interference.
This is the match that I was going to skip, because I didn't start it till midnight. I was like, all right, I guess this is the one that, I'll figure it out at the end. But then when I, skipped ahead and saw that there was another Asuka, I had to rewind and go back and watch it. And good stuff, man. That was great. I'm glad. And we talked about it last week, and how, there was all this confirmation that Ellsworth was in China and working these dates and whatever. I'm so happy that this happened. I thought he was unjustly fired in the first place, and I am glad to have him back, and I hope he's there for a while. I think you can use him on 205 Live. I think that he is a very versatile character who never needs to win, yet has 3 of the most important wins of that somebody could have right now in wrestling.
He's a character, and he doesn't even have to wrestle.
Exactly.
That wink was just top-notch television right there. And that pop was Stone Cold Asuka, and he took that mask off. It was like, oh!
James Ellsworth played me for a fool. I believed him when he said he'd be in China, but
that company, I don't know if you saw that, they released like 3 days before the pay-per-view, they released a statement saying James Ellsworth has informed us he's not going to be at the show. I think I texted it to.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I texted it to both you and Chandler.
I thought it said that he was gonna. All right.
No, they said that unfortunately he's not going to be there. Blah blah blah. So I was like, I'm wondering if. But I'm kind of glad that you didn't fully read it because then you got the surprise of it.
Yeah, I feel like that wink was like directed at me. Like, yeah, I got you. I got you, Aiden. I got you.
The most personal wink. Next, then we had AJ Styles defeated Shinsuke Nakamura in a last man standing match, and a lot of people, a lot of fans are upset with this one. My take is I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's the AJ Styles fan in me. I don't know if it's because I truly consider him the best in the world right now. But I was okay with it. It was the first actual victory, I feel, between these two since WrestleMania. And I totally understand wanting Shinsuke Nakamura to have won this match at the point of this rivalry. But I don't know. It does now seem like it's the end of the rivalry, which that I'm kind of upset by because having AJ win, I was hoping that this would be a continuation, but I guess this is it because it kind of seemed like on SmackDown that Shinsuke is kind of gonna be moving towards a Jeff Hardy rivalry, but I don't know. I was really okay with not only this match but the outcome as well.
I think I'm gonna have to agree with you. I do think it was Shinsuke's time and he should have gotten the title, but him not getting the title I am okay with, and the way that they did it I'm okay with because it took a low blow and a Styles Clash off of the steel steps. Vicious, both of those were vicious looking, both the low blow and the Styles Clash, and I think as time has gone on and seeing what they did with Shinsuke on SmackDown and what they're going to do with AJ, I think it was I don't think it's a bad call, and I think Shinsuke is going to be just fine. He's going to get that U.S. title for a little bit. He'll get that. I think he's going to get the championship eventually. When it's time, he'll get it. But I agree with you. I might be the AJ Styles fan of me too, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with him holding on to the title longer than he's already held it.
I say this is one of the great last man standing matches we've seen in a while. But my favorite moment of the night, period, when Shinsuke misses, it's the low blow, the face.
Yes.
Pure, raw emotion.
Or SmackDown emotion.
Like, oh, no.
This was a very good match. This is the best match that these two have had together since Wrestle Kingdom. I still was hoping for more, but I don't want that shouldn't cloud the judgment of this being an awesome match. A little slow at times, but I think that was necessary. It was a last man standing match. Sometimes that's just part of the deal, and I'm glad that they had the time. I'll look at how long this match was, but it seemed to go on for a while. But I do mean that in a good way. So I'm glad that they did get the time to tell the story. I don't know if I want this to be over. Maybe I do for now, just because it hasn't been what I had built up in my mind for these two to have a rivalry. But for now, I think this is a fine mini blow off. So I love these two. I was hoping for more, but this match was by far the best, and this was a very good match.
I feel like the time after this would just be a nice intermission. For their lower regions to cool off a bit.
They have not seen the last of each other for sure.
The next matchup of the evening, Nia Jax was able by disqualification to retain her Raw Women's Championship, not for long, against Ronda Rousey. And man, I really want to see Ronda Rousey on a week-to-week basis on Monday Night Raw after this match. She impressed the hell out of me. From the hip toss that she gave to Nia Jax to doing a picture-perfect crossbody off the top rope. As Andre mentioned earlier, the way that she was able to sell all of the power, devastating moves that Nia was throwing at her, I am extremely impressed by Ronda Rousey, and I just want to see more of her.
She has it. I mean, she's still a newcomer when it comes to in the ring, but you'd be hard pressed to see it in that match right there. She sold like a veteran. She took some of those. There was a couple, maybe there was just one, but she took a Samoan drop that would just look brutal. And she just sold it like I don't know. I just loved everything she did in that match, and I loved having Alexa cash in the way she did because then it didn't. Ronda didn't have to win the title, but she didn't have to take a pinfall loss. And then the cherry on top was her segment on Monday Night Raw. That was perfect, and that showed the world that she's superstar in superstar or about to be superstar or already there. Excuse me. She's so good. She has me tongue twisted.
Jesus Christ. Going back just a second, 31 minutes and 15 seconds for that last man standing match for AJ Styles and Shinsuke. Man, you don't see that for a match that doesn't go on last, so that's still pretty cool. I know for a last man standing match, you do expect it to go longer. But back to the issue at hand here. Ronda Rousey, to me, is the female version of 2002 Brock Lesnar, and I love it. It is so much fun to watch. Like, she does have it, like Andre says. I wouldn't be upset if she did get her own Paul Heyman. Maybe they want to wait till Paul Heyman isn't with Lesnar to do it, so it doesn't look like it's the exact same thing. But man, I really see a lot of similarities between her and when Lesnar first came up to the main roster, and just the carnage, and like, I don't know, you never saw someone so perfect who looked like they were just murdering their opponents, but seemingly is safe. I mean, we'll have to see how that goes, but man, I really love what we're seeing from Ronda Rousey.
And speaking of having it, that whole segment on Raw, the way that she was swinging for the fences with, this is a little thing that I picked up, the way she's swinging for the fences with the Money in the Bank briefcase on Alexa, and then when she turned her attention to Kurt, after she'd given him that beautiful hip toss, by the way, and she's hitting him and saying, why are you doing this? You're supposed to be my friend. But she's not putting as much into the swings as she is on Kurt that she did on Alexa Bliss, because Kurt's her friend. And maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but just even little things like that for someone that new in the business, for her to maybe someone talk to her, or maybe I'm just like way conspiracy theory looking into it. But to me, that just like showed me that, wow, she understands her character. She understands the relationships between her characters and other characters, because when the refs came out, she beat the heck out of them like they were nothing, same way she was doing with Alexa Bliss. And you hit it on the head, Frony. She's like a female Brock Lesnar, but I think she has potential to be a bigger star than Brock, because she's not going to jump to the NFL anytime soon.
So I was skeptical about Rousey before WrestleMania. I was impressed at WrestleMania with her performance, and now I'm completely sold. When this is your second match in WWE and you put on that good of a show, like Andrew said, you got that it factor. And especially, even more so with the segment on Raw, which you just don't see that kind of like, almost like a movie performance level type of that kind of selling. And it's almost even very close to believable.
And that's the thing too. You say it's close to believable because Ronda Rousey, her reputation and her background in MMA gives her that element that makes it like, okay, yeah, this is actually believable.
Yeah, I love that comparison that you made, Frony, about saying that she is the 2002 Brock Lesnar, because it's true.
She's like, at the time I hated Brock Lesnar, but it was because I was supposed to. But then you just realize like how amazing he is, and I don't have that same kind of hatred. And I think it's because of that first time that it happened, and I was in 8th or 9th grade. Now with Rousey, I can sit back and enjoy a way that I wasn't able to, and it's quite a bit different because he came in as a heel, interrupting matches, kind of just taking over whatever situation. I know it's quite a bit different, but when you watch just when the bell rings and like the way she wrestles, it reminds me a lot of that same 02, 03, even 04 Brock Lesnar, man. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch when she does, like you say, get into more consistent Raw matches and get into these rivalries with girls who are on the roster. So there's a lot to look forward to right now.
She's going to main event at WrestleMania at some point here in the next few years.
She already did this year.
I guess, yeah, you could say so.
It was the best.
She definitely stole the show.
It was the best match, I would say.
Definitely. To close out the night, then, the men's Money in the Bank contract was won by Braun Strowman in one of as I said, I think we might have mentioned this last week, but just one of the most stacked Money in the Bank ladder matches I've ever seen. Not just because of the amount of people, because both of these ladder matches, this is the most that they've ever had at 8 competitors, but the level of talent and the fact that any one of these guys could have walked away with the briefcase, and I would have been more than okay with it. Any one of them. And Braun is the one who ends up climbing the ladder and retrieving the briefcase, but not after being buried under a pile of ladders, running through a ladder and throwing Kevin Owens off of the tallest ladder in the match. This match, looking back on it, he totally should have been the one to win the match, just the way that it went. But this was a fantastic Money in the Bank ladder match. I thought one of the better ones, definitely in the past 3 years, and I would say at least maybe five years.
I think these 2 matches for Money in the Bank that we saw, the women's and the men's, are better than all of the last 3 for sure. If I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
I want to say, and yeah, I think at least, and because that women's, man, same thing with the men's. There was just a lot of spots that are like, yes, that's good. Like telling the story of Owens going around and trying to get everyone to take on Braun, and then some of the guys going in and literally burying Braun under ladders. I mean, a lot of the stuff, and Samoa Joe taking Braun and throwing him, trying to get him on the table and telling Owens to get your ass up there. Like, we talked about this, whatever. I don't know. There's just a lot of fun moments, and that's not even like the tip of the iceberg. There was so much other little stuff throughout the match.
This is the stuff that just involves
when somebody
Braun.
goes on the run or goes on a little run, or somebody jumps it. I mean, there's just they did such a great job on both of those matches. I can't imagine what a pain in the butt it must be to write out one of these matches. Like, okay, all right, here's the spots we want to make sure we get in. Here's these 8 spots. There's going to be one with you too. Like, there's just so much going on, and for them to pull both of these matches off so well is why we're looking back on and saying this is the best pay-per-view of the year, is because of stuff like this.
You talked about fun moments, and one fun moment I want to bring up is probably my favorite moment of the match. Was right before Kevin Owens got thrown off by Braun, when he was climbing the ladder, and then Braun climbed it and grabbed him by the neck. And Kevin Owens saying, I'm sorry, and then gets thrown off. I just thought that was a great touch. I just loved
That's
it.
great.
And he was loud
It
enough
is.
for camera to pick it up. It's like, that was awesome.
Yes.
And the match itself was awesome. And Strowman needed it the least, and I did not expect him to win it, but I have no problem with it. We got a monster in the bank, and he's going to be able to be kind of in Vince McMahon's back pocket for if he does want to do a Brock and Roman match again, just in case it gets booed out the building when Roman finally beats him. He can say, send out the big man with the briefcase and leave these people happy. But despite that, I love Braun Strowman, and I'm glad that he has a beeline towards the title, and hopefully he gets it.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the if you see a highlight reel, this is going to take up the majority of that highlight reel. And I went into this match thinking, well, okay, any of these guys can win and I'll be happy with it. But as soon as Brock took the title, I'm like, okay, I was wrong. I don't think I wanted him to win, because the push they've been getting him is just a little too much, in my opinion. Wins the greatest Royal Rumble. I mean, technically it really steals the show by winning the tag team, the Raw tag team at WrestleMania with a 10-year-old. And then, again, winning the greatest Royal Rumble and then winning Money in the Bank is just, I feel like it's just a little too much too quickly. Plus, I really would have wanted to see Finn Balor win it.
I think a lot of this is because they're so intent on having Brock as champion, even though Braun's the one that should have it and the one that deserves it and the one that the story says should be the champion right now, based on everything that the way they've booked him. I think all of these are kind of like consolations for him. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping that this briefcase is the final consolation that, okay, now the odds of someone that big, oh no, he's going to fail to cash into Roman Reigns. Oh.
Don't even joke about that.
I'm not
Don't you
joking.
put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
I'm not. That's why I stopped in the middle of my thought, because anyways, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully that leads to him winning the title.
If you guys want to look back at Mixed Match Challenge, Hey, team, is it Little Big?
Team Little Big.
Team Little Big wins
coming
both.
Up pretty big.
Coming
How
up pretty big.
cute.
It's adorable.
How precious. As I wanted to mention that I feel like the point of the Money in the Bank match is to give the opportunity to someone who they really need that briefcase to win the title. Braun doesn't need that briefcase to win a title. He's shown before that he can clearly go head to head with Brock if he really wants to.
That's true, but that
I completely
makes him,
see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree. Even though it was an awesome pay-per-view, I would have chosen basically anybody else except Bobby Roode to win it, but I'm not upset about it, and I didn't really think about what you said, Andre, or maybe it was you, Chandler, but now Vince kind of has that extra card to play when Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar gets booed out of the building, that there's an option to go to now, and that's a really smart way to set yourself up for, up until for a year, basically, because, well, we all hope to avoid that moment anyway, but at least there is something that could possibly happen that would change that. So that's my hope.
And that is absolutely, I feel that what we're all hoping here. I wanted to point out one more awesome highlight in this match was when Kofi Kingston dives off the top rope and goes for the trust fall. All the guys catch him, and then Finn Balor flips on top of him. One of the best highlights of the match, and also that had to hurt Kofi so much because he was just suspended by all the guys. Oh, and that looked gnarly.
And if it wasn't going to be a New Day member winning it, then Kofi is the right guy to put in just for the possibility of crazy spots that you never see. And there it was.
There it was from Kofi.
Yeah, he's always great in ladder matches.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for us. Well, a couple other things. There were Sanity did make their debut this week. Which is awesome and
crazy because we thought, it's been so long, and then all of a sudden it just happens here. It just seemed a little bizarre that we didn't see them for so long, and then they pop up this week.
They were just waiting for Rusev Day to debut.
And Rusev Day, yes, the #1 contender for the WWE Championship. Oh, such an awesome week. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. Thanks for listening. You can find us on social media. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Search at the Schmozcast. All right, I think that's it. For Anthony, Aiden, and Andre, I'm Chandler. Thanks for listening.